Hi, I'm Callie. Thanks so much for watching. I am a homeschool mom of 3 boys here in Colorado, and we're going to talk about curriculum today. But first, we're going to do a giveaway. This little sign, it is adorable. It says, "Is it recess yet?" with 3 little cute ducks. How cute would that be? And haven't we all asked ourselves this? Is it recess yet? I hope so. So in order to win, you need to be subscribed and comment below and then watch till the end, and I'm going to ask a question, and that is what I'll ask you to comment to enter the giveaway. So remember that you need to check back in a week to see if you won. There's no messaging on YouTube, so I can't send you a message directly, so you just check back to your original comment. So remember to do that in a week. All right, so we are going to talk about BJU Press history. So the reason why I thought about this is that we did the 5th grade BJU Press with my oldest son, Heritage Studies. This is the 4th edition. And so now that he is in 8th grade, we ordered the 8th grade BJU Press. This is also the 4th edition, the American Republic. And so this one is called Heritage Studies. This is the American Republic. But when I initially looked at it, it really worried me because they cover the same topics. They cover the same thing, which is history. I mean, it was what it was, right? We can't, I mean, I guess we can change it, but we shouldn't. The worst thing, if you have ever worked with kids, is teaching them something they already know or that they think they already know. They're very resistant. Like, oh no, we've already done this. I already know this. I'm not learning this again. So I was really worried, like, is this going to be super redundant? Because it starts with early American, with the early and Native Americans, and then it ends at the same point. It ends with the election of Obama. And so as far as I know, I'm pretty sure these are the latest editions, and that's just kind of where history, the history texts have stopped. And so I was really happy when I ordered it to find out that it is not super redundant. And the way that I do history with the boys that I've really liked is that we've done the BJU Press Heritage Studies one school year, and then we will do Story of the World. And so the Story of the World gives you that broad, expansive sense of global history, like over a course of time. And then the BJU Press is a good foil because it focuses on American history. And so let's kind of jump into comparing and contrasting. One of the things I really feel is important is that you have to trust your curriculum. One of the things I was really insecure about when we first started homeschooling is that a neighbor or a friend with a kid in the same grade would say, "Oh, we're studying igneous rocks in science." And I'd freak out and be like, "Oh my gosh, we're not studying igneous rocks. We have a gap in our knowledge." And so I'd scramble and find them a library book on igneous rocks. Well, no, because then eventually our curriculum will circle around and we will talk about igneous rocks, as an example. So you just have to trust your curriculum. You're learning things that some kids aren't. And other kids are learning things that you haven't touched on yet, but you'll get there. So the reason why I want to kind of mention that is the 5th grade curriculum is for the maturity and the where a 5th grader is at. It is not going to educate them to a high school level. And so when you get to 8th grade, you have to also realize that this is not the end of their studying of American heritage. Eventually they will be doing this in high school. And so what you're doing is laying the foundation for them to eventually have a very deep synthesis of American history, of our government structure, of our social structure, how things have changed socially throughout our history. So if you haven't done, or editing time. Also, I think it's kind of interesting to compare and contrast 5th grade versus 8th grade, because how many of us have a 5th grader and an 8th grader? Probably a lot. I mean, I have definitely combined, right now I'm combining my grammar with my 6th grader and my 8th grader. And so some of you may have kids that you're like, maybe we should do the 5th grade for both of them, or maybe we should do the 8th grade for both of them. And so maybe you'll see kind of how you can enhance or simplify the curriculum depending on, maybe you have more than one kid or 3 kids. So let's start by looking at the 5th grade Heritage Studies actually begins with a very in-depth coverage of early Americans. So they go through every region of Native Americans. So they start, of course, with the Bering Strait, and then they go through section by section each region of Native Americans, and it talks about their culture. It talks about animism. It talks about, just a really good, thorough foundation about Native American culture prior to European exploration. Whereas in the 8th grade curriculum, they do not go as in depth into early American because that foundation's already been laid. They've already learned that if you've kind of stayed the course with BJU Press. So they talk about it. They talk about first American civilizations. It's a review, which is good. So you're refreshing that, but it's not going to go into an in-depth study of that. So if you were trying to kind of combine with a younger kid and skip to the 8th grade curriculum, you'd probably want to pick up some books on early Americans, Native Americans, or you could hop onto the BJU Press Homeschool Hub and maybe try to find some worksheets or find some of the, what do they call it? That's like the teaching tools that they have on there for this Heritage Studies 5. So it's called Heritage Studies 5. You can log on to the BJU Press Homeschool Hub and they have print-offs there. The other interesting thing that I was very happy to find with the 8th grade curriculum is that it's set up where they could really do it independently. The 5th grade curriculum has a very conversational style. So the student reads, and then you go through with this Teach for Understanding section and you ask them questions. And so the questions, for example, are, what are the 2 southwestern Indian tribes in this lesson? Then they have some more critical thinking questions, or how do you think other Indians may have built their boats or canoes? So it kind of, it's pretty basic. It's not going super deep. Then in 8th grade, you've got relate the accomplishments of the American Indians to the image of God in humans and to the creation mandate. So you're going deep there. You're really going deep. But it is not set up to be that conversational style. So instead of you going through and asking the questions to your 8th grader, the 8th grader will read independently, and then they will take a section quiz. So they will independently take their section quiz. You can go over, or you will go over the answers with them to make sure that they fully understood what the section was about. But it's nice that they're at a point now in their education where they can read, they can comprehend, they can ask clarifying questions as necessary, but this is work that they can do on their own, which is awesome, especially if you have more than one kid. The other interesting thing is how much more in depth the 8th grade curriculum goes into the development of the Constitution. So it goes into all of the different compromises and conflicts and the discussions that the Founding Fathers had about drafting the Constitution. The 5th grade curriculum talks about specific battles that took place during the Civil War. And then in the 8th grade curriculum, it goes much deeper into a broader list of Civil War battles. And so it's interesting to see how when you compare them side by side, they really are primed in 5th grade to then go deeper into the study in 8th grade. The other kind of cool thing is that the 5th grade curriculum you will see it's kind of cartoony. It's definitely, you can tell, for a younger set of kids. It has photographs and it has things like that. But the 8th grade curriculum doesn't have any of that cartoony illustration. It is very, it's a very grown up type of middle school, older middle school curriculum. both curriculums talk about social change, how religion played a part in making up American culture, and how it's, kind of the waning of religion has degraded the culture. And so I think that's really interesting how they take the time to tie in our faith with how that shifts the culture. So that happens in both texts. The final chapter in the book is the new millennium. So it's the George W. Bush administration and then the Obama administration. And, it's kind of interesting because they really do go in depth with social issues. They talk about abortion, drugs. They talk about things that you probably want to have gone over with your kid personally, rather than having them learn these things in public school or in a school setting. So it's facilitating conversations that you need to have with your kids, and then it's presenting them at a maturity level that they're prepared for, because these are things that have impacted us. They impacted our history and our government's policy. Two is in the 8th grade curriculum, they talk about Edward Snowden, the NSA, all of the leaks that happened during that time. So it's kind of cool. I think it'll be really interesting as my son reads through it. So when you get to the end of a chapter, it has a chapter review. The 8th grade one has all of this in the book. The 5th grade one has all of that in the actual student workbook. And then the 8th grade one has a workbook also. The other thing that I found interesting is that the 8th grade, I'm trying to turn to the page here so I say things correctly. The 8th grade curriculum at the end, or the textbook at the end, it has the Declaration of Independence. It has just one simple map. It has a list of all the United States presidents and then an index. And that's what you have in the 8th grade one. The 5th grade one was interesting because it has a gazetteer. And so when in the workbook, they are required to look a lot of things up. And so the gazetteer is one of the things that they use to write out their definitions. But they have several maps. They have a world map in 5th grade. They have a physical map in 5th grade. And there is also a political map of the 50 states. In addition to the gazetteer, biographical references. So whenever they're looking up people, they can look them up in this reference. And then there's also a general index. And so I think that's interesting. I think that just shows the maturity of your student and kind of, what they're capable of looking up and kind of in developing those research skills, where in 5th grade, they make it much easier to find the information that they're asked to look up, where in 8th grade, it's just bare bones. It's the way a textbook is when you go on into high school and college. So that's kind of a cool thing to compare apples to oranges. If you were trying to use the 8th grade curriculum with a younger student and you notice that they're getting frustrated, know that that's okay. That's probably a normal thing. And you can probably, help them out a little bit with that without feeling like you're not challenging them enough. Well, that is kind of an apples to apples comparison of BJU Press 5th grade curriculum and where you're headed once you get to the 8th grade curriculum. So comment down below what your favorite thing to study was in history. I love learning about the Declaration of Independence and how that grew into the Constitution and all the different political maneuvering that happened around that time period. And I have to say, as somebody who graduated high school in 2002, learning about the election of George W. Bush and Barack Obama as history is kind of traumatic. That was a mind blower whenever we got to that chapter. It's not history, that's just life. That's what's going on. So thank you so much for watching. Subscribe, like, share with somebody who you think might want to win and enter this giveaway. This is super cute. So thank you so much for watching again. Bye.